Our invocation this morning will be led by our immediate past president, Larry McKenzie. Larry?
Thank you, Eric. The strength of Toastmasters is in its members. It isn't in strength in numbers, but strength in our actions. In this meeting this morning, may each one of us hear and receive supportive coaching so that we continue to develop and grow our leadership and communication skills. Hansel B. Duckett said, "What this country needs is more free speech worth listening to." Today, let us learn to think, listen, and speak so that our speech will not only be worth listening to, it will move the hearts and minds and souls of those that are listening. Amen. Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Larry. Good invocation this morning. Now we'll do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much for that. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests. I would like to welcome our guests this morning, our return guest all the way out from Poland, Kinga. Kinga, thank you so much for joining us today. And we have another guest, Carlos. Carlos, where are you from?
I am from Mexico City. I am from the Lloyd Club here in Mexico. And I'm very pleased to be here.
We are happy to have you here this morning with us. Are there any announcements before I turn the meeting over to Marty? Just a reminder tonight, social hour, 7 p.m. We look forward to seeing you there. And with that, I'll turn things over to our Toastmaster of the day, Marty Johnston. Marty.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. Most welcome guests. I chose the theme Mini Summer Getaways, and I hope you enjoy it because if you think about it, I even asked for a show of hands. How many of you have gone on an extended vacation this summer? Not too many people. Oh, a couple people. The reason I say mini summer getaways is because a lot of people aren't able to leave the state, let alone leave the country due to the crazy COVID-19 pandemic that we're hopefully on the tail end of. But I think it's important that we all do get some type of mini summer getaway, whether it be, just driving out into the country to a friend's house and spending the day for a picnic or going down to the lake, Allegheny State Park, wherever it is, just some place you can go and sit and unwind and relax, chill out, close your eyes, pretend you were on a week's vacation out in someplace nice and warm. I'm going to keep some filler information brief because we do have 3 prepared speeches today, and one of the speeches is a longer speech. So with that being said, I would like to make a toast, actually. Make a toast. If anyone has a glass or a cup of anything, raise it. And here's to hoping that each of you have some type of mini summer getaway before the summer ends and you enjoy yourself and your family. Cheers. Moving into the job holders this morning, I'd like to start with our word master, Ryan Flory. Ryan? You see Ryan? We'll come back to Ryan because I honestly don't see him. He said he was going to be here. We'll come back to Ryan. Master, Ginga. Ginga, good morning, welcome. Could you share your duty as Master for us today?
Hello, today I would like to be a counter. A counter is a role who helps with verbal crutches, how to avoid verbal crutches and how to prevent not to use them. And of course, at the end of the meeting, I will give you my report about your as, other verbal crutches like pauses. And it's very important to to not use these verbal crutches because lots of people use them at the radio, and sometimes it's difficult to hear such monologues with full of verbal crutches. And that's why Toastmasters helps to learn how to avoid them. Yeah, and keep good luck with not using verbal crutches.
Thank you, Ginga. Our grammarian this morning, Dave Licata.
Grammarian?
Mike Licata. Mike Licata. Mike Licata.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters guests this morning. My job as grammarian will be to pay attention to everyone's use of the English language, the good and the bad, and report back at the end of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Quote Master David, now's your turn. Quote Master David.
Welcome to Studio A. Mike's in Studio B. I like this one. If you want to be safe on the streets at night, carry a projector and slides of your last vacation. Helen Mundus. Thank you very much.
Jester Steve Smith.
Morning. I'm going to. Normally, this is the week I would go to Michigan. That's why I'm using this coffee mug today. Now, I told my suitcases that we wouldn't be going anywhere this year. Now I'm dealing with emotional baggage.
Oh.
I got another one.
Oh.
I have another one. A couple met in Myrtle Beach and fell in love. And they tried to figure out how to keep it going. He said, it's only fair to warn you, Linda. He said, I'm a golf nut. I live, eat, sleep, and breathe golf. And she said, well, since you're being honest, so will I. I'm a hooker. I see, he said pensively. Well, then he smiled. It's probably because you're not keeping your wrist straight when you hit the ball.
Thank you, Steve. Our timer this morning, Jen Zapla.
Hello, I will be your timer this morning. For those of you competing in table topics, our club goes for 1.5 to 2 minutes. So you'll get the green at 1.5, yellow 1:45, and red at 2. For evaluations, it'll be 2 to 3 minutes, 2, 2:30, and 3. And for the speeches, typically they're 5 to 7. So I will be waiting for the evaluators to give me their time. I'm going to use the backgrounds today, so if you are speaking, make sure that you pin me or you can see me in your view, and you will see the green light, the yellow light, or the red light. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Our Jester Master this morning is Jill Roaring. Jill.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. My job, and this is the first time I've done this job, is to pay attention to the nonverbal communication that everybody does as much as possible in this format and report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Jill. Our Quizmaster this morning, Beth Banks. Quizmaster.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. My job will be to come up with questions throughout the morning on what specific details for some of the speakers or people that have been talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Our general evaluator this morning, Carol Ann Halstead. Carol.
This morning, fellow Toastmasters, I will be just keeping track of the meeting, and also particularly watching the evaluators and evaluating them. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Has anyone seen Ryan? Ryan? I don't see Ryan. I have a word of the day. I don't know how much it ties in with the theme. The word of the day, I have is phlegmatic, P-H-L-E-G, matic, M-A-T-I-C. It's an adjective. P-H-L-E-G-M-A-T-I-C, adjective meaning not easily excited to action or passion. Unperturbed by situations that normally invoke anxiety, an absence of stress or worry. So if you're on a mini summer getaway, you might be phlegmatic to a lot of things that are going on at home that you would be easily upset about or stressed about. So phlegmatic, P-H-L-E-G-M-A-T-I-C. Use that as often as you can for the rest of the meeting, and especially during table topics, which is coming up. And our table topics master is Margot Bittner. Welcome, Margot.
Good morning, Marty, and thank you very much for giving me a word like phlegmatic to use, and it will tie in with my questions this morning. So for our guests, the way table topics at AM Lockport works is not only do you have to meet the time frame of 1:30, 1:45, or 2 minutes with a 15-second buffer, but you also have to use the word phlegmatic in your presentation. Now, summer vacations are not something we do a lot here on the farm. The mug I'm using this morning says, "Wish we were there." My college reunion was done virtually. But Jim is actually considering taking a day off this coming summer. He's considering taking August 25th off for the whole day. For those who don't know, that's my wedding anniversary. So he's actually going to give me one day this summer. We're going to do something. Now, I have just discovered he has never been on the Maid of the Mist. So that's something we're considering doing. So Tracy, what's something else we should consider doing on our day off there on August 25th? Ladies and gentlemen, Tracy Farrell.
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. And don't be phlegmatic, because it's going to be an awesome day. It's going to be well planned. And there's so many things to do in Niagara County. I believe you should take a tour of the city of Lockport. There's wineries right here, and I know you're very familiar with all the wineries, but we do have the Flight of Five right in the city. After that, I believe you should get on the boat ride. And Dave's like, no, don't go there. But check it out. You have to know your competition.
Mm-hmm.
Also, go on the boat rides up and along the canal. It's interesting. Usually, if you get the right one, you can have a dinner along with music being played. It's a wonderful night going on. After that full dinner, I think you should take a walk along the canal. It's beautiful. There's so many stops where you can stop and see everything along the canal, and finish it up with a cave tour. I've actually never taken that tour, but going through the caves, check them out. They're perfect time of year because it's cool in there and this hot weather that we're having. Go through the caves, check it out. If you're really, really adventurous, I think you should try those zip line tours. Go down and zip across the canal. Enjoy the city of Lockport. It is the #1 destination in the world. For all those on Toastmasters, come to the city of Lockport. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Actually, we had our 30th anniversary party on that boat. It was wonderful. So my niece actually just moved to Boston, and we have a guest with us who is actually from that area. So Tom, if I were to persuade my husband to take a few extra days and come to your area, what should we come and see if we were going to visit you? Tom Moran.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, for that question. Oddly enough, I came to Boston in December. Now, I came here because we have grandchildren up here, and I was looking forward to visiting with them. However, shortly after we came here, we went to Florida for a couple of months, and we came back to Boston in end of March, first part of, or end of February, first part of March. And that is when this whole COVID-19 thing started. So we have not had the opportunity to visit with our grandchildren or even our own children. So I have tried to remain phlegmatic, not stressed out. But as far as a vacation for me, I would say, since I haven't seen anything in Boston and I don't have any I have probably a lot of recommendations, but I don't know if anything is open. They haven't been in my case, and those places that are open are so restricted that they're very hard to see. So for my case, what I do is I sit out on the back porch and pretend I'm somewhere else. It's very easy for me growing up poor in the small town of Appleton. I always would imagine that I'm somewhere else. I kind of have a Willy Loman complex. So that's what I've been doing here. My mini vacations, I often end up at my vacation, I fall asleep. So that's what I've been up to, and that's what I would recommend. So thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Tom. Now, my fellow Toastmasters know that every January we go on vacation. We are cruisers because that's the only way I can get my husband truly away from the farm, although we are putting off our 2021 cruise to 2022. So Carlos, if you're willing, if I was going to cruise in your area and visit Mexico City, what should I see in Mexico City? Carlos, are you game? Great.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, Table Topics Master. Sorry. Here in Mexico City, we aren't phlegmatic about the pandemic, and that's a big problem because many people go outside thinking that the virus is a scheme of the government and manipulation or fake news kind of thing. So I wouldn't recommend you to come down here as of now, but when things go back to normal, if that ever happens, I have my doubts, I will recommend you to visit the pyramids, for example, that are near here to Mexico City, to the capital. They are astonishing. You can see the ancient civilization progress, or at least the remains, but we are somewhat kind of proud about that. Most people think that they are a waste of money and resources and things like that because they wanted to build a Walmart years ago near Teotihuacan ceremonial site. The people joined and stopped that initiative. But as you can see, there are other things to look forward down here. There are many museums. You can see the paintings of Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera. You can go to downtown and see the historic center. You can see the Independence Column, which is very famous. You may know it because every time the Mexico soccer team plays, everyone goes there to celebrate. In general, please stay at home, Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. So all three of our contestants did use the word of the day. I'm pleased to report. Madam Timer, how do we do on our timing?
All three of our contestants fell within time. Tracy at 1:45, Tom at 1:49, and Carlos with the buffer at 2:08.
So I will ask our past president, Larry, to put up our poll, and I will turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster, Marty Johnston. Thank you for this opportunity, Marty.
Thank you, Margot. Thank you very much, Margot. I kept track of the word, and everyone said the word at least once. And as Margot said, everyone qualified: Tracy, Thomas, Moran, and Carlos. And the vote is up. Thank you, Larry. Okay, briefly touching back on the theme, the mini summer getaways. I know many of you have a favorite mini summer getaway, and hopefully you've already taken it. My favorite getaway is to my niece's place it's called the Bluffs, and it's in Wolcott, New York. And they have a little cottage there, and it's beautiful. It's pretty tranquil. It's a nice place to get away to. I haven't been there this year yet. I hope to. It's peaceful there. The kids and the family, you can go boating, go fishing, go swimming, and just chill out by the water. There's always good food and drink, family, friends. It's a nice place to go and chill out. I'm definitely looking forward to going there. I see Ryan. Ryan, good morning. Ryan, now I started using the word phlegmatic, Phlegmatic. I don't know if you want to keep going with that word or you want to introduce your word.
No, I don't want to put a speed bump in the middle of the road. We'll continue with that and I'll keep track.
Phlegmatic, okay. Thank you, Ryan. Nice to see you this morning. All right, we'll move then into our prepared speaking portion of the meeting. Our first evaluator evaluating Nancy Ferry's speech is Samir Rahman. Samir, can you tell us about Nancy's speech objectives and the timing? Thank you, Samir. I don't see Samir. Okay. Would anyone like to fill in for Samir?
Maybe we could change the order of speakers, see if he shows up.
Phil just offered, Marty. Grab Phil.
Okay, Philip, can you, what I think we'll do is we'll put Nancy, if it's okay with you, we'll put you at speaker 2 just so Philip can catch up. Philip, can you access the website? Nancy's speech information is on the website, or I can send it to you.
I will look it up.
Okay, let me know if you need assistance.
All right.
Okay. Oh, then we will come back to Phil and Nancy. Our second evaluator is Cecilia Marcy. Cecilia is here, and she will be evaluating Larry Eggert's speech. Cecilia, could you please tell us about Larry's objectives and the timing? Thank you, Cecilia.
Can everyone hear me?
You're up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this morning, Larry's speech it's from the dynamic leadership module, level 3, elective project, storytelling. The time is 5 to 7 minutes. The title is, you got the title?
Yes, I do.
And it's 5 to 7 minutes?
Yes. Hey,
And
thank you, Cecilia.
I have one more here.
No, go ahead.
Purpose statement. The purpose of this project is for the member to practice using a story within a speech or giving a speech that is a story. That's it. Is Larry? Okay.
Thank you, Cecilia. This morning, Larry Eggert comes to us having served as Chief of Lockport Police, where he retired after 36 years. Currently, Larry's an adjunct instructor at Buffalo State College. The title of Larry's speech is Crash and Burn, and Burn, and Burn. Help me welcome Larry Eggert.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Crash and burn and burn. Or, if you're in a hole, stop digging. What gets you into trouble isn't always the bad decisions you make. It's the subsequent digging as you attempt to justify the bad decision. So obviously this speech is going to be a storytelling speech, but it's also going to talk a little bit about leadership and the consequences of decision making. So I'm going to reach back into my rich treasure trove of ridiculous police stories to enliven this a little bit. So let's go back 20 years and join me on patrol. Cops always have to wear cool glasses. So I'm driving down the street one day, 20 years ago, Genesee Street. Now, Genesee Street in Lockport was a place where there was a lot of drug activity and a lot of prostitution back then, unfortunately. Anyway, I'm driving down the street and I'm the captain of the shift. It's the afternoon shift. It's in the wintertime, so it's very cold. And as I drive down the street in my brand new SUV, by the way, I see a young man pull over in a car with no license plates. So I drive up behind it and he gets out of his car and he is speaking to one of the ladies of the evening that are standing on the corner. Now I'm assuming they're probably talking about politics or religion, or not. And I pull up to see what's going on. As I pull up, this young man who I recognize is a convicted felon, just got out of state prison, is on parole. I know his name. As I pull up behind him, he has a panicked look on his face and he jumps into his car and he takes off. So now he's driving a car with no license plates, no insurance. So I pull up behind him, I put my red lights on in my brand new SUV and decide I'm going to pull this young man over for a bunch of traffic infractions. He decides he is not going to stop and he takes off down the street. So now we're in a pursuit. So let's stop for a minute. Now it's decision time. What would you do? Now, if we were in a regular meeting, I would go around and ask you guys what you would do. Would you chase this person as he's driving away, or would you not? I think most of you would agree that we probably would wind up trying to stop this guy, to chase him, to try to stop him. And when you talk in police work, there's two decisions you have to make in this situation. Either you chase or you don't chase. If you chase and the car crashes, you're in trouble because you chased him and caused him to crash and you get sued. If you don't chase him in an unregistered car and he drives down the street and crashes into a car, you're in trouble because you didn't stop him and you're going to get sued and probably lose. So it's a no-win situation. So I choose I'm going to chase this guy. So we have a short chase through the city and we wind up going down this dead-end street, Fayette Street. For those of you that are familiar with Lockport, it's a dead-end street. And I'm driving after him and I'm realizing this is great because he's going to stop, abandon the car. There's going to be a foot chase and I'm going to catch him because I run every day. So I'm pretty excited about this. As he gets to the dead-end street, there is a hill to the right side. So he turns his car and goes down a 45-degree hill full of trees that ends on Garden Street. Decision time. What would you do? Would you stop your car and let him go? Now, I know the guy, so all I really have to do is get a warrant for his arrest after this is all said and done. Go pick him up. He'll be violated on his parole, and everything will be good. So here's where I started digging my hole. Here's where I started to literally crash. Well, I'm not letting this guy get away. So I turn my car to the right, and I go down this huge embankment in my brand new SUV, less than 1,000 miles on a car. The young man that I'm chasing gets down, he bottoms his car out on Garden Street, slams it in the park and abandons the car. I'm bouncing down this hill, avoiding trees, by the way. Bottom out on Garden Street, slam on my brakes, not quick enough. Crash into the back of his now abandoned car. $7,000 damage to this brand new SUV. Awesome. So now I'm digging the hole deeper. But I'm now in a position where even though I dug the hole and I realize that I made a bad decision, I have to finish this. So I don't have to dig anymore. I've dug the hole already. Now the hole is digging itself. I started a foot chase with this guy. We jump over a bunch of fences. He crashes through the back door of this poor woman's house. He has no idea who she is, lands in the kitchen. Myself and several police officers land on top of him. There's a violent struggle. This poor woman is screaming in her kitchen. And we get up. I'm covered in blood. I cut my hands all over these chain link fences, and so did he. Now remember, I don't have to dig anymore. The hole is digging itself for the decision that I made. I'm covered in blood. I have huge gashes on my hand. Back then, when you got out of state prison, there was a 25% chance that you had HIV, so AIDS. So during the fight, he was cut up, so was I. His blood was all over me. Now again, the hole is digging itself just because of that one spade full of dirt that I took out when I went down that stupid hill. So I have to go to the hospital now. So the next day I go to the hospital to have a blood test because you have to decide if you now have AIDS. And that's a whole nother speech, by the way. I walk into the hospital again. Now it's the next day and the hole is still digging itself. It's now, I've crashed and now I'm burning for 24 hours. I go into the hospital. I put my prescription down on the counter at the hospital blood bank. I said, I'm here for a blood test. The girl who I know behind the counter says, you're here for an AIDS test? Now there's 12 other people sitting behind me in this room. I feel strongly that I have to explain to the clerk and these 12 people that I'm not getting tested because I'm gay. And I went through this whole speech that I just gave you to the entire waiting room to explain why I was there. The hole continues to dig itself. So it's amazing when you make decisions, how sometimes when you crash, the burning continues. How you take that one spade of dirt out of the hole, and after a while, if it's a bad decision, it just digs itself. So what can you learn from this? Lesson number one, be careful in your decision making. Go figure. If possible, analyze the situation. Before you make a decision, look at the short-term and long-term consequences of your actions. I know that's easy to say, hard to do sometimes, but it's important. Number two, if you make a decision and you realize it's a bad decision, don't be afraid to correct it. Because if you don't, you'll dig the hole, and after a while, the hole will dig itself. So if you follow these simple lessons, hopefully you'll avoid being singed by the initial crash or the subsequent and more serious burns that come from these horrible decisions that you might make. And in the end, it's a simple concept. If you're in a hole in a leadership position, you're making decisions, and you make a bad decisions, stop digging. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, Phil, are you all set? Phil Russell? Back.
I are ready. I are ready.
Okay, beautiful. Phil, please let us know Nancy Ferry's objectives and for her speech. Thank you, Phil.
All right, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, our guests. This project addresses the skills you need to develop a podcast, create interesting content, and organize a cohesive program. You will learn how to record and upload it on the internet. The purpose of the speech, the purpose is to project, of this project is to introduce you to the skills needed to organize and present a podcast. We use this project and your own research to create a podcast, record a minimum of 60 minutes of content. You are free to divide it up. Nancy has put this to a 5 to 10 minute speech. That's what she told me on her. Let me just double check her chat. It's going to be 5 to 10 minutes. Let's go back here. Excuse me, I'm sorry. She's going to do a 10 to 15 minute speech. What she has done is it's normally a 2 to 3 minute introduction, a 5 to 10 minute podcast, but she has altered it on her own to do a 10 to 15 minutes. And she's doing, this is a practice for an actual live podcast. Now, it's from the Pathways Dynamic Leadership Create a Podcast. It is practice for a podcast later this month. Again, the timing is 10 to 15 minutes, and there you have the title of the speech, Mr. Toastmaster.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Phil.
All right.
Nancy Ferry this morning. The title of her speech is, "How Did You Pull It Off?" Please help me welcome Nancy Ferry. I should mention that Nancy is in charge of ministry at Lockport Hospice, and my family and I had a beautiful experience last year working with Nancy upon the death of my father, James Johnston, at Lockport Hospice. I have nothing but good things to say. Please help me welcome Nancy Ferry.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. This morning, live on our podcast, I have a special guest with me this morning. That special guest is Nancy Ferry, Director of Spiritual Care and Bereavement Services at Niagara Hospice Incorporated. Please welcome Nancy Ferry this morning. Good morning, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Larry, for inviting me here today.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for being with us. Nancy, during this time of the pandemic, did you initially think that you would be able to have any type of memorial events this year? And how did you come about creating the virtual remembrance ceremony?
Well, let me begin by saying it definitely was not a phlegmatic experience. I was full of stress, and the thought of not having to do a memorial service was wonderful. It put me in a stress-free place. And then in my heart, I knew we really had to do a memorial service. We needed to help people to remember their loved ones, especially in this time of isolation. What I did was I made some phone calls, I did some research, looking for possibilities, what's out there. I connected with our IT department, all the departments, everybody putting in ideas. And then I took a deep breath and I scrapped all of our previous plans and started our creative juices flowing from ground zero.
Thank you, Nancy. I have a couple of other questions. What were the challenges in organizing the elements of the presentation and producing it for the community?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is we had created a program that was very well greased and it was smooth. We had a template that we could plug in different people, different readings. Everything was smooth and set, and that was not going to work on a virtual remembrance ceremony. We wanted it personalized, we wanted it meaningful, and short enough to keep people's attention span. Somehow when you're gathered outside with a group of people, you can go a little bit longer. After all, they've driven there, they want to stay a little bit longer and linger. We knew that it had to be probably 20, 25 minutes. We also wanted to do something more than readings. And I knew there was that need for connection. And for me, during the pandemic, the most important connections were the 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. So I went with that theme, and we decided what we would do is move around our beautiful hospice gardens and walk through them with people. It ended up being a little bit of a challenge there when it came to technology.
Were there any technology issues you had to figure out in planning and how to record and also to edit the video?
Absolutely. The idea of walking through the gardens was not as fluent as I thought. You can't do that with a kind of equipment that we have. We're fortunate enough to have this wonderful IT department, a PR department, and an events department. However, we do have a limited budget and our equipment is limited, and we were definitely not prepared for this pandemic and for the suddenness of it. It was all so quick, and we couldn't wait until we had everything down perfectly to make this happen. We needed to do it because we knew that people needed it. The technology, we began by expecting to do a live presentation on YouTube. And as we moved through this, it became more and more complicated to do it live, thinking about weather conditions, the possible wind, rain, gathering our people to do it in a a socially distancing appropriate way became more and more difficult. So what we ended up doing was doing it in segments, one at a time, and then editing it. So the editing, fortunately, I didn't have to do very much of it. I handed it over to the IT and they scratched their head and worked on it for a very long time. The most complicated one was someone taped the fire portion of the service from their phone at home because we couldn't have a fire there and at the hospice house. So uploading that onto is what she tried to do, email it, and then it had to be cut into all these little segments. And later on, we learned that there was a much easier process, which is part of what I'm learning now in this whole video challenging world for me. We're not professional production companies, and I need to be kind to ourselves and say, this is just what we can do, the very best we can do at this time. So that's what some of the challenges were. We realized that running names and pictures was the most difficult to connect with a live video without some kind of very awkward transition. So that's why we ended up using a recorded version.
With your recorded version, what kind of feedback did you receive from the family members who watched the video of the ceremony?
Actually, I was very surprised. I received amazing emails. I'll read you one of them. Nancy, it was beautiful. My niece and I both cried. So moving and very well done. It was really good to light a candle, take time out to be with my niece and to honor my sister. We asked people to bring a candle or some kind of object that reminded them, a picture, whatever, to place in front of them during this service so that they would have their loved ones in front of them in whatever way they could. Most of the people that responded had very, very positive things to say. Some of them were about the simplicity of it and just being gutsy enough to do it and appreciative that we did the best that we could. There was only one person that got really angry. She called me and actually screamed at me because she didn't have internet. After I helped her de-escalate and talked a little bit about her grief, we did find ways in the community that she was able to access some internet and she was able to get on.
If you found this to be the new norm, what would you do differently or add to the ceremony if you had to do it again next year or in the future?
The first thing I would do is mic people instead of using the camera microphone, which is something I've learned. The second thing I would do is make the mailing much simpler. We did not realize the enormity of the process for mailing. I didn't anyway, because I don't usually do those kind of things. We had no volunteers, and I had this great idea of ordering forget-me-not seeds to send everybody. So everybody would have something, they could plant it and remember their loved one. However, every other hospice in the country or the world and every person having a wedding had ordered out all of the forget-me-not seed packets that were available. So I ended up ordering a 20-pound bag of forget-me-not seeds. If anybody needs any, give me a call. We ordered them, and then we had to measure exactly the same amount. Oh, then I had to buy, of course, the envelopes, and I had to print up labels to go on the envelopes. But we had to measure out the exact amount of seeds, so it was like 1/8 of a teaspoon in each one because it was bulk mailing. It was very complicated, and I used a lot of technical support, people, and clinical support from people to fill seed packets at the last minute because the seeds didn't come in and we needed to get the mailing out, that kind of thing. The things that I would change, because I've learned a little bit more about some of the technological ways that we can do things, I would do a little bit more planning and coordinating with the experts in that field. and obviously pick a different theme.
Are you hearing different concerns from families recently grieving during the pandemic, where social distance and isolation present new challenges for them?
Absolutely. I'm hearing from the bereavement counselors that what used to be maybe 10 phone calls in a row of calling somebody and saying, we're here for you, here's how we can support you, please give us a call back that if you choose to have support, and hang up and make another phone call. Everybody was picking up and everybody wanted to talk for an hour. So it was very, very different experience. And we got together as a team, and I listened to what was going on, and just so much grief and complicated grief, but also severe isolation. The feeling of not being able to have a funeral, no calling hours, no wakes, no burials. When people lose a loved one, oftentimes they gather with their family from all over the country. People come and visit and stay and talk and share stories. The neighbors bring cookies or casseroles. You have a lot of people are connected with their faith communities. And these things were all gone or very, very minimal. Some churches were doing funerals with 10 people allowed, no more. What happens if you have 6 kids and 20 grandchildren, and who do you say no to? Where do you start? And I anticipate down the road that we are going to see a lot of delayed grief and very different. I don't know how that will look, but I think we will see a lot of different needs in the community.
As we conclude our podcast this morning, could you tell us how your staff is connecting remotely with families? Are you doing video conferencing, or are you having online dialogue on a Facebook group?
Yes, we are. The first thing we did was we started a Facebook closed support group to allow people to share their feelings. Then we started some Zoom support groups. Our counselors have been doing FaceTiming with families. And then I've boosted up our website to include short videos. Right now we have initial grief, anticipatory grief, cooking for one, guided grief meditation, and a yoga for grief. So these are all things, and also I added a huge bibliography, which I just had a few small books recommended, and I added a huge big bibliography. This has really taught us something about being stagnant. We have done the same old in a lot of ways for many years, and this has been a huge growth opportunity for our hospice to learn how to meet needs of people in different ways. Not everybody wants to or can or does enjoy sit in a circle kind of support group or support over the phone. People have all different needs and different times that they can do things. And we've had a huge response from the things like the closed support group. Somebody can get up at 10 o'clock at night and type something in and wait for a response from somebody another day. I'm looking forward to the challenges that face us with this pandemic and the new learnings that we've experienced. And I think it will open up our minds to brand new ways of connecting with people in their grief and in their loss. And thank you so much for having me here today. I appreciate this opportunity, and I look forward to further podcasts and conversations.
Thank you so much for visiting with us today. There's so much more that we can learn from your experience. Let's do a follow-up interview in the future. Thank you for joining us today. Nancy Ferry, Director of Spiritual Care and Bereavement Services from Niagara Hospice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Larry. Moving into our third prepared speaker is Len Thornton, and Thomas Heldwian is Len's evaluator. Tom, please share Len's objectives and the timing. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Well, this morning, excuse me. This morning, we're going to be hearing from Leonard, one of our more experienced speakers. He's doing a research and presenting project. He's going to give us a well-organized and well-delivered speech on a topic of his choice, which he's researched. It can be in any format, and the time is 5 to 7 minutes. Ms. Toastmaster, you have his title.
I do. Thank you, Tom. This morning, Len Thornton comes to us as owner of Information Services Support and IT of Lockport, New York. Len, as many of you know, is involved in technology. Len is our go-to guy for technological questions, issues, topics. Len's title this morning is Hybridizing. Please help me welcome Len.
Thank you, Marty. Good morning, Toastmasters and our welcome guests. Hybridizing. I wasn't sure that was a word, but it seemed to fit for me. Now, if you're from the field of botany, horticulture, it typically means blending two different plants to achieve the qualities of both. Okay, I'm not talking about plants this morning. I'm talking about merging what we have here with our Zoom meetings back into a bricks and mortar face-to-face Toastmasters experience as we were originally chartered. Now, Toastmasters International gives us a couple options. There have been always online clubs where the members would just remote in and they had no physical meeting place. They existed online only. They have, with the COVID-19 pandemic, allowed clubs to be online attendance clubs, wherein up to half of their members can be remoted in using Zoom or other online meeting alternatives. Now, we've gone back and forth with this club. What do we do when we can finally meet at Tom's Diner, which you see in the background here, our typical or our current meeting venue? Well, this venue always presented some challenges. We are a strong club, we have a lot of members, and we would be at capacity in that room. Additionally, at any given meeting, there would be about 8 people sitting in the booths where their back was literally to the speaker. So they didn't have a line of sight to the lectern. Being able to hear at the either end of this long room was difficult, and we had to add a PA system and a speaker down at one end to mitigate that problem. And from this recent photo that Larry sent me, they now have plexiglass barriers between the booths, which is going to further limit our ability to hear in that room. And I'm not even sure what capacity we'd be able to fill in that room under current New York State COVID guidelines. So rushing back to Tom's is not an option, unfortunately, for us. I thought to myself, why not try and combine the best of both worlds? It had been suggested by some that we alternate meetings. We have a virtual meeting, and then the next week we have a physical meeting, and we go back and forth. I think what that would evolve into is 2 separate clubs, people who only remote in and people that only want to be there in person. And I understand the needs of both people, but I think there's a way of hybridizing, of combining the best of both. And what I've seen, let me bring up a different graphic here. If we had a proper venue and it were laid out properly, wherein a large screen were behind our lectern, and we had somebody acting as a Zoom master for the meeting, directing the camera, the Zoom meeting, letting guests in, and coordinating who's speaking and when, I think we can pull this off. We are a phlegmatic club. We pivoted quickly to the online meetings once COVID-19 hit, rather than just give up our meetings, because it means so much to all of us. Additional advantages are we've been able to see members from out of town. I myself have been out of town and been able to attend meetings. It's been wonderful. Those with health issues can attend safely. If people aren't comfortable with the social distancing capabilities of our venue, of our restaurant, or they have health problems wherein an infection could be very, very bad for them, they can still attend virtually. Weather becomes a big issue in Western New York. If you're not aware, we get a lot of snow and ice and very cold days, and some of our members travel a significant distance to get here. I know we don't see Margot for a few meetings. Anne-Marie Lenhart comes from Amherst. People come from far and wide for this club because of all the things we have to offer. And on any given day, to be able to just phone it in, as you will, or connect virtually, I think that would be very attractive to a lot of our members. And obviously the space issues with a growing club like ours and a robust club in Tom Steiner just doesn't fit. Now there are challenges. The room must be designed and really built for the dual participation. We need a wall wherein we can mount a large screen TV, set up a camera. We can't spend time lugging equipment back and forth in an hour setup for every meeting. That's simply not going to work. We need, as I mentioned before, a virtual meeting manager or a Zoom manager of our meeting, someone to coordinate the online people, bring them into the meeting, also make sure that the camera's on the lectern for the people that are there physically and that they're communicating back and forth. Given the delay, there are limitations, obviously. We need reliable internet. We need a strong broadband connection that's going to keep us online. We can't be dealing with technical glitches throughout the meeting wherein those become the focus and take away from the flow that we're all accustomed to of our meetings. The PA system, that's an obvious thing. We'll need to hear the Zoom meeting, and the people on Zoom will need to be able to hear all the people live in that club. Now there's always trade-offs. When we switch to this online format, the biggest drawback to online participation aren't technical, but they're social. Video conferencing allows for more nonverbal communication than a simple phone call, but it's still limited compared to live speeches in a face-to-face crowd. You've got all those rich physical signals, eye contact, leaning in or leaning out, subtle little facial gestures that you don't always come through when you're online. Reading an audience without verbal feedback, without applause. One of the things that so endeared me to the club in the early days was the constant applause between speeches. Every time somebody spoke, we've lost that. And we may want to experiment with that in the Zoom fashion, having people during speeches unmuted so we can actually applaud at key points, as long as everybody behaves and keep their dog barking and their distractions down. Privacy may become an issue. When we were chartered, who could anticipate that we'd be recording all of our meetings and putting them on Facebook? Now it gives us the opportunity to review them and analyze ourselves, which is a great tool, but some people may not be comfortable with that. So in conclusion, with a little thought, planning, patience, I think COVID has presented us with a fantastic opportunity to our members to continue to develop our communication and leadership skills in two formats. Mr. Toastmaster.
Marty, you're on mute.
Timers report, please.
Yes, our first speaker, Larry, did go over with 8 minutes, so unfortunately he did not qualify with the buffer. Nancy came in at 14:05 and Len came in at 7:23, so he did come in with the buffer, so the other two speakers did qualify.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, and Larry will be sending the voting around. Thank you very much. And most recently, I received a package in the mail, and not often I receive packages in the mail. However, I was completely surprised this time. I got a book from a friend in the mail. I opened it up, and The title of the book is Don't Go There. And it's interesting. It says from Chernobyl to North Korea. There's stories about this man that loses himself on vacations in different countries. And then he says he finds everyone else in the world's strangest places. So if you pick up a nice book, if you're not able to get away on a mini summer getaway, chances are if you find the right book, you're able to absorb yourself in the material and really focus on the book and take yourself away to some faraway places. At this point, I'd like to move into the evaluation portion of the meeting. And we'll start with Cecilia Marcy evaluating Larry Eggert's speech. Cecilia, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Marty. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. I always like to hear a good cop story, and today Larry didn't disappoint. Back in the 80s, I used to watch a lot of cop shows. That's all the in the 80s. That's all there was shows about cops. I watched Hill Street Blues, Starsky and Hutch, Cagney and Lassie, and it's still going on today. There's still a lot of cop story. Being a policeman is not your typical job. Every day, you never know how's your day going to unfold. And today, Larry treated us to one of his most memorable, but albeit regrettable decision or adventure. This story actually resonates with me because I live near downtown, and I know where Wasborn is only 2 blocks away from where I live, and Green Street. And I don't want to be politically correct, but yeah, those street, Green and Wasborn is troubled street back then. I'm not sure about it now. So I can sympathize with Larry when today he told us about his story that he was driving a brand new SUV that's probably worth 40,000, and you see a suspicious activity. You see a guy down in Wasborn talking to, policeman always had an instinct that something's bad is going to happen, that guy is a bad guy. So despite his good judgment, he decided to pursue the guy, and just like a typical police story, it doesn't always end good, and it's always in a disaster. And Larry did a good job about telling us about how the story, what's the consequences of his bad decision, that he's afraid that the guy might have AIDS, and he even went to the it's a bit embarrassing when he went to the pharmacy, and the clerk wasn't so discreet and shout about if Larry has AIDS, because he has to be tested with AIDS. So it's that story, that's typical cop story. It's kind of tragic, but to me it's a bit sad that Larry make it fun and interesting. I lost my train of. Yeah, as I was saying, that Larry make it fun and interesting, but that just I think this is wait a minute. Yeah, Larry made it fun and interesting for us. And I know it's not fun for Larry, but with Larry, it's with Larry. It's not really your. To me, Larry doesn't look like your typical policeman. I think it's more Larry McKinsey that looks more like a policeman. When you have when you think of a policeman, you think that a policeman should be burly and big and not so serious like Larry. But so I don't know. I'm probably out of topic here. My train of thought. I'm still, maybe I need some coffee, but I think everyone enjoy Larry's story because he give us a window about what a typical policeman's job, the difficult decision that they have to make. And my only suggestion for Larry is, I know he wears glasses. Maybe he could have maybe he doesn't have the receipt. He doesn't have the prescription for the. I know this is not done. He should have the prescription about the AIDS test. Maybe that happened 20 years ago. So that's all. That's all I can say for today. Thank you.
Celia.
Thank you.
We got our next evaluator is Phil Russell, who'll be evaluating Nancy Ferry's speech. Welcome, Phil.
Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. Nancy, you had it great. You picked the right person to do the interviewing. Larry was great. Your enthusiasm at the open, and that's key. It brought us all in, brought me in, because to me, the opening is so important. If you catch me, then all of a sudden, I'm going to listen to the rest of the speech. So that was great. That was excellent. Now, one of the things that I would like to see you work on, we all have to work on it, is eye contact, looking into the camera. It's one of those things we have to work on. But I think in your case, it would be, especially in a podcast, looking straight at will work. Now, one thing, if you're going to do where you are, I might work on checking out the lighting, shadows in your face, because that's important too. You're doing a live podcast, they call it. It will enhance the speech if we can see you better. I don't care where it's done, either at hospice or at your home, but make sure the lighting is good. When we do our television programs, lighting is crucial. So work on that too. Now, that's a challenge for you. One thing I really liked, when you put up that this was a Pathways project, in that, I got the introduction, what the purpose was. I read it. It was a little bit awkward, but that's fine. I had it. Then I also had the evaluation. So I went through and did the evaluation on that form. And I can get that to you quickly now because it was there. And have all those things. I evaluated them, gave you some compliments, gave you some ideas on how to help yourself. So you did a good job in preparation for this particular speech. It was excellent. It helped me as an evaluator jumping in on the fly to do it. I was prepared because of technology got me there. That's one of the things I think Pathways helps us a lot with, is the technology. I can be very poor at technology, but by you helping me, it made me do this evaluation for you. So I really like it. Now, the other thing is, make sure at the end, closing is important as the open. So people remember what you were talking about. And what that is keep that enthusiasm high. It's a tough job. You're in a difficult situation, but keep that enthusiasm high, because that is the key to your whole podcast. Great job, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests.
Thank you, Phil. Our next evaluator evaluating Len Thornton's speech is Thomas Heldwian. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Well, we got a wonderful speech from Len this morning on all the things he's done to research what we could do for hybridizing. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He first set himself up with the logos of his speech, where he showed himself to be an expert in the field so that we would all listen and understand that he understood the problem and was going to tell us all about it. He then went through the logical chain of events. He talked about how this club was formed, how members come from far away, weather conditions, all the different challenges that we were going to have, and how we adapted to the pandemic. But then later on, we went ahead and started to think about, how do we go back into the physical world? Well, hybridizing. That was part of his opening and part of his closing. Very well done to put it in both and to flow the entire speech in a logical logos order. He showed passion. I think the one improvement that I would say is Len is normally very well centered on the camera and is very calm and is phlegmatic. But on this speech, he seemed to lean in a little bit too far. He was a little too close to the camera, so we couldn't see his hand gestures. I would really love to have seen his hand gestures a little bit more. I could see a couple of them come up to the screen, but because of the fact he was leaned in, it definitely limited it. His eye contact was fairly good. There were a couple times where he was looking down, so I'm assuming his notes were below. I think that we talked about having your notes near the camera so that you're looking at the camera. Other things that were very well done. He researched how other people conduct hybridized meetings, the equipment that's required, and how we would have to adjust our meetings in order to be able to have both online and a physical space at the same time, and the need for an additional role where we would have to have someone control that technology. Overall, very well researched, very well presented, and I look forward to seeing how we hybridize the meetings, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Thomas. Could we have a timers report, please, Jen, on the evaluators?
Yes, we can have a timers report. Cecilia unfortunately did not make time today. I don't know if she had trouble seeing the timing, but she had a long enough evaluation for 2 evaluators at 5:35. Is that a record? Anyone in the club know? We also had Phil and Thomas evaluate today, and they both did come in time. Phil at 2:55 and Thomas at 2:39.
Thank you, Jen. Oh, we'll vote for best evaluator at this time. Okay, at this point, I'd like to call for reports. I'd like to start with the Master report. Ginga?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
It was a fantastic meeting with no verbal clutches at the beginning. And according to the introduction of the roles, only Stefan 1-0 and according to table topics session, Tom Moran only 2 arms. And that was all of the fantastic meeting, because now we started evaluation session, and it was completely opposite. And yeah, Cecilia Marchi gave us about 15 M's according to feel free, free verbal crutches to us and one saw. And according to the speakers, the Nancy Ferry gave us 9 M's and Len Forton 1 The rest with null verbal crutches, 0 verbal crutches, the rest. And yeah, and for me, this session and this meeting was great, and yeah, hope that next meeting will also be such great with so few verbal crutches on it.
Thank you, Ginga. Next, we'd like to hear from our grammarian, Mike Licata. Mike.
Thank you, Marty. We had several strong speakers this morning, but I did catch a couple of things. First, Larry Eggert, you did a great job with vivid language. The no-win situation was great use of the English language, and crashing and burning for 24 hours, I didn't think it was possible, but I thought that was great language. Nancy, just because you spoke the longest means I probably caught the most. You did, I like the creative juices is always a good imagery. I did catch you say a cause, it's because. There was some, I also caught you dropped an A and about. I caught a was like. Nothing can be very minimal too. It is minimal, it is a descriptor enough. Len, I like hybridizing, I think is a great word and a descriptor of how the world has to work nowadays. I think the constant applause. You said current meeting venues, Tom Diners. I would argue that Zoom is actually the current meeting venue, or online would be the current meeting venue. Our evaluators did a great job. Cecilia, I did catch it's restart, so just watch your restarts, and you did that twice. And that is my report for this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we have our gesture master, Jill Roaring.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. Not to be phlegmatic. Let's see, Tracy was accentuated her table topics with hand motions considerably. Carlos had very expressive facial and hand motions when he was doing his table topics. Marty, I noticed you often looked sideways when you were doing your vocalizations. Now for the speakers. Larry, there's so much to speak about for your speech that I can't say it. You full of gestures and facial, and you leaned in for emphasis. You had sunglasses, you went sideways for the driving, you imitated the 45-degree hill, the red lights flashing, bouncing, and even did something about the blood. Phil, you need to check your view. Especially when you first introduced Nancy, it was not so bad when you did your eval, but only half of your face was viewing. Len had considerable facial, and it was good. His use of background graphics was good. Cecilia had limited eye contact. And then Phil, when he did his evaluation, he did a fist pump at the end. And he did have good eye contact with the camera, even though he only had half his face visible. And that's my report. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jill. Now we'd like to hear from our quiz master, Beth Banks. Beth.
Okay, thank you, Toastmaster. I have some questions. I don't really know how many questions I'm allowed, so I'm just going to go for it if that's okay. In Steve's jest, what were the two characters in the jest?
Luggage.
I didn't hear that.
His luggage and something else.
Pro golfer and a prostitute.
Yeah, what was the hooker?
The hooker.
I said hooker.
I thought I had you there for a minute. Where did Margot talk about going for her anniversary?
Bay to the
Cruise.
Bay to the Mist. Very good.
Oh.
What street was Larry Eggert patrolling?
Genesee Street.
Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee.
And what were the 4 elements that Nancy wanted to include?
Earth, fire, water, air.
Very good. Thank you, Master Toastmaster.
Thank you, Beth. And our word master, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The word of the day today was phlegmatic, or having an unemotional and stolidly calm disposition. I didn't do overly well. I got Nancy, Tom Heldwine, and Jill that used the word of the day. If you had used the word of the day and I did not pick up on it, I apologize. But phlegmatic, having an unemotional and stolidly calm disposition. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Ryan. At this point, I'd like to call on our general evaluator to evaluate the Toastmaster and the evaluators and help announce the winners. Carol Ann Halstead, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The theme of today's meeting was a very, very good choice, given the fact that we aren't able to do our regular length vacations this year. And it was nice that 2 of our guests participated in jobs. And all of the speakers spoke in a phlegmatic way. They weren't stressed. They knew their material, and they were speaking about, for a better word, non-phlegmatic situations, the decisions that police officers have to make, dealing with grief during the pandemic, and finding a way to continue our meetings in this different world we're living in. All of the evaluators did well, Cecilia let us kind of think about the situations that police officers can find them in while she reviewed Larry's speech. Phil and Tom, in reviewing their speeches, did very well in the sandwich format, giving very positive and also some suggestions for improvement. And it was very good. As always, we had Phil stepped right up to take an empty evaluator's place. So the meeting, I feel, flowed very well today. Very enjoyable. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Carol Ann. Larry McKenzie, would you please announce the winner, ask the guests how they enjoyed our meeting and how they found out about AM Lockport. Larry.
Thank you, Marty. Eric is busy at work this morning and asked me if I would close the meeting out this morning and also announce our winners. But before I do announce the winners, I would like to thank our two guests this morning. We had Carlos visiting us from Mexico City. Carlos, how did you enjoy our meeting?
Yes, I was very excited of being here. You are a very warm club. I'm looking forward to join you on more meetings, even though I have to get up earlier to walk the dogs and do all other stuff. But it's worth the while of being here with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Just in case you were wondering, if you look right here, our motto for our club is "It's worth getting up for." And I thank you for joining us this morning. We also had with us this morning a guest from Poland returning to visit us again this week, Kinga. And thank you for taking a role as our master. Kinga, how did you enjoy the meeting?
The meeting was wonderful. I really enjoyed it, and hope to see you next week. And yeah, and it's really wonderful club, and the atmosphere is great for me, and you are very welcoming, and yeah, and hope to see you next week.
Thank you so much, Kinga. And we enjoy having guests from all different parts of the world join us, and we thank you for doing that. Without further ado, we have our winners today, which are our ribbon winners. Table topics. Our top table topic speaker today, all the way from Mexico City, Carlos is our winner. Congratulations, Carlos. Table topic winner this morning. Our evaluator. Believe it or not, we had a tie. Phil and Thomas both tied, so we have a tie for the evaluator this morning, a dual role with Phil and Thomas. And our top speaker of the day, Nancy Ferry. Nancy, congratulations as our top speaker. Thank you, everyone. Before we close out our meeting this morning, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And I know there are a few guests that are a few members that are with us this morning also that may not have had an opportunity to speak. Does anyone have anything they would like to add before we close out our meeting this morning?
Absolutely. I think this is a great club. As I said again and again, everybody volunteers for roles and, spot available. So this is a great meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Moklis. Are there any other comments before we close our meeting, or are there any announcements of anything upcoming that anyone would like to let us know about?
Does Carlos understand how close we are to Niagara Falls? And I want to know if Carlos has ever visited the falls.
No, unfortunately, I haven't visited Niagara Falls yet, but
Carlos, we are 19 miles from Niagara Falls. Okay. And when you arrive in Western New York, you're going to have the best guides ever.
Okay.
You're more than welcome.
I'm looking forward to it.
You visit Niagara County, you're going to love it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Dave is our resident, I guess you would say, tour master. So, also coming up,
he's ambassador of
Western New York. The other thing too, at the end of this month, I know Kate will be letting everybody know, but Kate and I believe the rest of our committee has put together our picnic, I do believe, and it's August 30th, if I'm not correct, Margot?
You're asking me? Just because it's at my place, I got to grab my calendar.
All right. Well, Margot's...
I'm going to grab my calendar, make sure I got the right date.
Okay.
Yes,
it's August 30th.
It is. Thank you.
It is August 30th. Okay. The other thing I wanted to let everybody... Thank you. The other thing, I'm putting it in the chat right now, but if anyone would like to join this evening, it's right there. This evening at 7 p.m., we have our weekly social hour, And it's basically not a meeting. It's just a get together, a wellness check on everyone. And it gives us an opportunity to toast and welcome each other into a new week.
Who's Toastmaster next week?
Toastmaster next week is, anyone know who?
It would be Dave Licata.
Dave, do you have a
Oh.
theme?
Yes, Dave, do you have a
Yes,
theme
I
for next
do,
week?
Margot. Here it
Yeah.
is. The theme is the Sunday Funnies.
The Sunday Funnies. Okay.
So I want you all, when the weekend rolls around, I want you to pay close attention to the comic strips.
Where do you find comic strips?
You got them in the Buffalo or the Boston Globe.
Who gets a paper anymore?
Oh, a newspaper.
Hmm.
Oh, God, I
Yeah.
haven't seen one of those in years.
They have them available online.
Keep it up, Moran.
Speaking of online, you've been promoting a bridal shop lately. Is there some announcement coming here shortly?
No, my cousin's two daughters opened a bridal shop.
Oh,
They opened it up in Clarence, so I'm helping them promote.
I thought maybe one of the boys had maybe made a
Oh,
decision.
sure. Yeah.
Hey, Tom,
Yes.
didn't the newspaper go out? It's obsolete. I haven't seen one in years either.
No, I haven't seen.
It's
You know what?
gotta
I
be
saw
obsolete.
one laying in somebody's driveway one day.
Well,
I went to pick it up. I
Well,
didn't know what it was.
on that note, hang out for a couple of minutes, gentlemen and ladies. I'm going to officially close the meeting. If you'd like to stay for post toasties and continue our conversation, please do so. But the meeting is officially adjourned.